Angular updates were delayed. The delay was initially delayed, and the update was not delayed even in December. However, on February 7th, the research server published by Stephen Fluin, Big Technology has been boldly released. Ivy's reputation is diverse. Here, it depends on updating to version 9. Version 9 of Angular now available. Project Ivy has arrived. Stephen Fluin, following updating to Angular version 9. This guide contains information related to updating to version 9 of Angular. Updating CLI apps for step-by-step instructions on how to update to the latest Angular release and leverage our automated migration tools to do so. Use the interactive update guide at update.angular.io. If you're curious about the specific migrations being run by the CLI, see the automated migrations section for details on what code is changing and why. Changes and deprecations in version 9 for information about Angular's deprecation and removal practices. See Angular R version 9 of Angular now available. Project Ivy has arrived. Stephen Fluin, following February 7th, 11 minutes read, the 9.0.0 release of Angular is here. This is a major release that spans the entire platform, including the framework, Angular material, and the CLI. This release switches applications to the Ivy compiler and runtime by default, and introduces improved ways of testing components. This is one of the biggest updates to Angular we've made in the past 3 years. And we're excited for all of the ways it empowers developers to build better applications and contribute to the Angular ecosystem. How to update to version 9? Visit update.angular.io for detailed information and guidance. To have the best update experience, we recommend you first update to the final release of Angular 8. First, update to the latest version of 8 nanograms. Update at Angular, CLI at 8 at Angular, Core at 8. Then, update to 9 nanograms. Update at Angular, CLI at Angular, Core to review the key changes with this update, including deprecated APIs. See updating to Angular version 9 in the Angular documentation. Ivy version 9 moves all applications to use the Ivy compiler and runtime by default. In addition to hundreds of bug fixes, the Ivy compiler and runtime offers numerous advantages. Smaller bundle sizes, faster testing, better debugging, improved CSS class and style binding, improved type checking, improved build errors, improved build times, enabling AOT on by default, improved internationalization. The amendments here are extensive. New breaking changes, new deprecations, new removals of deprecated APIs. In version 9, Angular Ivy is the default rendering engine. Updating to Angular version 9. This guide contains information related to updating to version 9 of Angular. Updating CLI apps for step-by-step instructions on how to update to the latest Angular release and leverage our automated migration tools to do so. Use the interactive update guide at update.angular.io. If you're curious about the specific migrations being run by the CLI, see the automated migrations section for details on what code is changing and why. Changes and deprecations in version 9 for information about Angular's deprecation and removal practices. See Angular release practices. New breaking changes. Angular now compiles with Ivy by default. See the Ivy compatibility section. CLI apps compile in AOT mode by default, which includes template type checking. Users who only build with JIT before may see new type errors. See our template type checking guide for more information and debugging tips. TypeScript 3.4 and 3.5 are no longer supported. Please update to TypeScript 3.7. TSLIB is now listed as a pure dependency rather than a direct dependency. If you are not using the CLI, you must manually install TSLIB using yarn add TSLIB or npm install TSLIB. Save. New deprecations API replacement notes entry components none C entry components currency pipe default underscore currency underscore code provide default underscore currency underscore code use value USD. From v11 the default code will be extracted from the locale data given by local underscore ID rather than USD. Analyze underscore for underscore entry underscore components none C analyze underscore for underscore entry underscore components module with providers without a generic module with providers with a generic C module with providers section undecorated base classes that use Angular features base classes with it directive decorator that use Angular features C undecorated base classes section ESM5 and FESM5 distribution init Angular asterisk npm packages ESM 2015 and FESM 2015 entry point C ESM5 and FESM5 testbed.get testbed inject same behavior but type safe. New removals of deprecated APIs package API replacement notes at Angular core renderer to migration guide at Angular core root renderer factory to none at Angular core render component type renderer type to none at Angular core WTF scope fn none v8 at Angular core WTF create scope none v8 at Angular core WTF start time range none v8 at Angular core WTF end time range none v8 at Angular core WTF leave none v8 at Angular common deprecated I18 and pipes module common module none at Angular common deprecated currency pipe none at Angular common deprecated date pipe none at Angular common deprecated decimal pipe none at Angular common deprecated percent pipe none at Angular forms ng form selector warning none at Angular forms ng form element selector ing form element selector none at Angular service worker versioned files in the service worker configuration file ngsw config json replace versioned files with files C service worker configuration IV features and compatibility in version 9 Angular IV is the default rendering engine. If you haven't heard of IV, you can read more about it in the Angular IV guide. Among other features, IV introduces more comprehensive type checking within templates. For details, see template type checking. For general guidance on debugging and a list of minor changes associated with IV, see the IV compatibility guide. For help with opting out of IV, see the instructions here. Automated migrations for version 9 read about the migrations the CLI handles for you automatically. Migrating from renderer to renderer 2 migrating missing at directive at component decorators migrating missing at injectable decorators and incomplete provider definitions migrating dynamic queries migrating to the new $localize I18 and support migrating module with providers. One version has been updated in Bootstrap. Version 4.4.1 is the latest version. The current version is 4.4.1 instead of 4.3.1. The Angular version has changed from 8.0 to 9.0. Introduction Dependencies. This repository contains a set of native Angular directives based on Bootstrap's markup in CSS. As a result, no dependency on jQuery or Bootstrap's JavaScript is required. Here's a list of minimal required versions of Angular and Bootstrap CSS for Bootstrap. Ing Bootstrap Angular Bootstrap CSS 1 XX 5.0.24.0.02 XX 6.0.04.0.03 XX 6.1.04.0.04 XX 7.0.04.0.05 XX 8.0.04.3.16 XX 9.0.04.4.1. If you're using Angular is greater than or equal to 9.0.0 and Ing Bootstrap is greater than or equal to 6.0.0. You might also need to install the add Angular localize polyfill with Ing added Angular localize. See more details in the official documentation. Should I add Bootstrap JS or Bootstrap.min JS to my project? No, the goal of Ing Bootstrap is to completely replace JavaScript implementation for components. Nor should you include other dependencies like jQuery or Popper.js. It is not necessary and might interfere with Ing Bootstrap code.